if a starfish wore clothes, where would it put its trousers? On 2 of its arms? On all of its arms? On the tube feet it uses to move? It's an interesting hypothetical, but it's also representative of a pretty fundamental concept in the evolution of animal body plans: bilateral symmetry. That is to say, a body plan with a head end and a tail end with a symmetrical body on either side. Which means for a lot of animals, you could argue that there is a scientifically accurate answer to the trouser question. The trousers go at the bottom or tail end. But starfish, despite being evolved from the same ancestors as other bilaterians, don't seem to have an obvious tail or head or clear symmetry. Their mouth is on the bottom, their anus is on the top, no clear place to put a pair of trousers. And yet, as larvae, they do have bilateral symmetry. And that is particularly perplexing to developmental biologists. Generally, in the animal kingdom, once you evolve a bilaterally symmetrical body plan, you don't go back. So what's going on? Well, scientists may now have an answer, and they found it by looking at the genes which encode body plans. But before we get to their findings, let's start with the basics. Bilaterian body plans can be roughly divided into 3 sections. 2 of these are in the head, the forebrain and midbrain, shown in red and blue. And the third is the rest of the body, the trunk in yellow, at the tail end where the trousers might go. These sections are generally arranged in a straight line along the head to tail axis, and each have different gene expressions associated with them. So how might this map onto a 5-armed starfish? The first theory is a somewhat cartoonish arrangement, with the forebrain in one arm and the trunk opposite. Cute, but previous work has already shown that it's not very likely. Another theory is that each of a starfish's arms is in fact a copy of the basic 3-part body plan, duplicated 5 times and joined at the heads, with a trunk on each end. Another popular theory is that perhaps the normal head-to-tail axis goes from mouth to anus, upside down through the centre of the starfish. The forebrain would be at the bottom, then the midbrain, then the trunk on top. To settle the debate, researchers mapped gene expression in different bits of starfish anatomy, looking specifically for the genes expressed in the forebrain, midbrain and trunk of other bilaterians. And this is what they came up with. The forebrain genes are expressed in the centre, reaching out into each arm. Around that are the midbrain genes. But the trunk is not there. There is a thin layer of tissue that expresses the genes normally found at the boundary between head and trunk, shown here in green. But the trunk itself is absent. The starfish is basically all head. Which means, at odds with all previous theories, this starfish has nowhere to put its trousers. The researchers say that this finding is likely to apply to other echinoderms as well. And it's an important piece of the puzzle when it comes to understanding bilaterian evolution and figuring out how strange creatures like echinoderms relate to creatures like us. Paleontologists also now have more information to go back and study the many strange fossils of echinoderms and their relatives. And in the meantime, instead of a starfish in trousers, perhaps we'll have to settle for a big hat.